Hello then, my fellow hunters. Now you might be asking, how in the hell is the start of this video related to the topic of it at all? Well, you'll find out, but also, I've just been waiting for an excuse to do that for so long, and I hope it amused you as much as it amused me. The slow-mo! Anyway, okay, I'm just saying, giggling to myself. In any case, I want to talk about siege hunts in Monster Hunter Wilds, because we don't have any, obviously. Base World started with at least Zora. Of course, Base Rise had the literal rampage, for better or worse, mostly worse. And we kinda have an expectation that there is a likelihood, a chance, that a title update may give us that kind of experience in Wilds, especially when you look at Worldborne. I think there was two distinct big moments in World and Iceborne that really were kind of momentous and defining. Now, don't get me wrong, every update in both base games were that too, but I think there was two particular ones that really added something above what you normally expect. And the first one in base World, located in the caverns of El Dorado, was Kulve Taroth, a modern imagining of what a proper siege-type encounter could be like, a proper monster moving through an environment while we chip away at it, in Kulve's case, literally. And comparing Kulve Taroth to Lao Shanglong back in the day, it was of course, well, night and day. And while there was still definitely problems and teething issues, it was a genuinely cool, fun experience. The new golden map was beautiful, the investigation phases, the final showdown in her nest, breaking the horns, and then eventually later on getting a version we could actually kill, the weapons that we could get from it, and everyone of course has their own thoughts on here's just a big pool of RNG weapons, have fun. I think it certainly isn't a bad thing to do once in a Monster Hunter game cycle, because I do think it provides a nice little treadmill for a bit. But in any case, the actual experience, yeah, Wedge Beetle swinging through the cavern, getting to Kulve, and then having that melting gold dripping final showdown as you follow her zone to zone, there really was a lot to love there. Giant golden goat queen Jagras, I think, is something that everyone has a fondness for, at least your first time. Now, how many times after that that fondness remains is always the big question mark with these spectacle event-esque hunts, right? I don't think anyone can disagree the initial experience is wow! And honestly, normally above that of a regular monster, but it also, I think, drops quicker. Like hunting my 100th Nergigante was just as satisfying as the first. Your 100th Kulve Taroth or safi'jiiva that we'll be talking about, perhaps not as much. Certainly not if we go further back for the more teething issues that were CG hunts in the past. Looking at you, Shen Garen.
Okay.
Though we will return to the crab. So Kulve Taroth, very, very fun as a concept. safi'jiiva then in Iceborne, the second big momentous, this is a whole event on top of a new monster, was another step up. To me, a genuinely entertaining actual hunt. The energy absorption, fighting him down to the layers, the final zone, it breaking apart, Sapphire of the Emperor, oh! Everything about him, the red dragon equal to black dragons, Elatrion burning the cocoons to try and prevent more. Everything about him was wonderful, except maybe him being an adult Xeno'jiiva, because the difference is kind of stark in how they be, but I don't really hugely hate that either. In any case, I think he was spectacular, and having this collective gathering hub siege against him, every team contributing, working him down, stacking up the points, it really was quite a neat little system. We had the weapon pool once again, but with an actual resource from him, upgrading them. That was really entertaining, and I think, again, making, hey, title update, whatever, we have this big siege hunt, it's got a huge pool of weapons for the next couple of months until the next title update. This is what you're working with. Dig through the pool, see what you get, see what you can build. There is a certain element to that that's very entertaining. I also think a method to get set bonuses on weapons in Wilds would do wonders for freeing up the kind of pigeonhole sets that are happening at the moment, especially with gore. Even if there is also an element of, I have gone through 1,000 of them. And that's something that can always be improved. But the idea of relic weapons, even in 4 Ultimate, was, at least in my opinion, really solid, so I always enjoy that kind of coming back, and honestly, Artian is perhaps even a less RNG extension of that kind of system. It certainly does remind me of relic weapons quite a lot, just with a lot more control. In any case, the point I'm saying, both World and Iceborne were punctuated by an absolutely banging, at least initially at minimum, siege encounter. And I think Wilds is primed to have one, because it's going to be, if it does, something on a whole other level. With how detailed and open Wilds is, you could imagine it, right? The Grand Hub would make such a cool, well, hub for a siege fight, a la safi'jiiva. A whole new zone with something big that we have to work together to take down that rewards something big. Like, the possibilities are endless, especially with sekrets. We could have a level of mobility to the encounter that we've not quite had before. I think it is sad that Rise and Sunbreak kind of never really got a proper one outside of something rampagey in that sense, because wirebugs would have made it truly amazing, as would having palamutes to add that mobility. But I think Wilds really does have that chance to do the greatest siege hunt of all time, one that really marks itself out as not just a glorious spectacle, but an endlessly repeatable, satisfying encounter, almost like Safi managed, but I still think felt a little bit short if you hunted him enough. There's just something there, right? And when I look at the Grand Hub, as I say, it's so big. Like, it's a collection of all of the cultures. You can get all of the different village foods delivered. There is loads of camps lining the mountains. You could totally see a situation where something comes to the Forbidden Lands, and then, like, a contingent from every tribe and village comes to the Grand Hub, like a council on how to deal with it, working with Suja and the Wyverians. It could take the form of a colossal guardian that's awakened, maybe even something above Zoshia, or it could take, a classic returning siege monster, like, for example, Shengaren, and now is when we do go back to him, because let's be honest, his original hunt is one of the worst hunts of all time. I love Shengaren, I really do, but poking at a giant crab's legs until he eventually falls down, and then you can poke at his face a little bit, he somehow manages, at least to me, be a little bit less entertaining than Lao Shanglong, although he does have the novelty of the crab. But you could do so much with him if you expanded upon it. And the reason I use Shengaren as the example is Monster Hunter Online, because Monster Hunter Online did have a Shengaren encounter. And it wasn't like, earth-shattering, but it was such a massive improvement that made him feel a lot more actually threatening, a lot more engaging, and an actual proper literal siege. Like, he would attack a proper castle fortification with you and all the hunters running around using various different equipment to try and stop him. It was a marked step up, and that's something that I think you could see once once again. You could take something as seemingly slow and limited as just big crab, and then wildify it. We've seen how good they can make returning monsters, the glow up they give them. Imagining that on a classic siege monster revived would be really amazing, as would be just getting a brand new one out of nowhere, a la safi'jiiva. That's entirely possible too. You could also just bring back a massive monster and then siegeify it, like Atal'Kar with Atal'Nesto. That doesn't need to be a normal hunt encounter. You could totally make dismantling Atal'Nesto the siegey part, and then an Atal'Kar showdown at the end. That is something I think would be really fun, giving a previously not traditionally siege monster a siege encounter because it's that threatening here, and for example, using Atal'Kar, it could have its mech built out of ancient technology, of the land spine, of the wilk of the land, and that could make it ultra powerful and turn it into the siege level event. I think that is really, really fun. But to take it back all the way to the start, the Diva, right? To me, this is a fantastic detail. The songs are wonderful. Knowing we'll get new ones with the festivals, it makes the Grand Hub just extra special. It's a great character. I love listening to it, all of that. But I can't help but think that it's almost too much just for a background enhancing song. I am convinced that at some point, through some sort of title update, through some sort of continuation of the story, the Diva will become a more relevant character. And I think one of the things that points towards that is her eyes being closed, but us now knowing that she has detailed, fully modeled eyes. Now that might just be standard, whether a character's eyes are open or closed anyway, just part of the process, but we even had that kind of fun fatalis conspiracy with her pose being totally like both Zoshir and Fatalis, who are like each other obviously, and yada yada, all of those comparisons that we talked about, some a little bit, let's say out there, some a little bit more thought-provoking, but at the end of the day, the idea that she might actually have a little bit more going on, maybe she can sort of feel or connect, or the presence of a certain monster, a monster that's a big enough threat and literally big enough to be a siege fight with the Grand Hub its epicenter. Maybe extend the Grand Hub into the siege area of the monster so it's still seamless like Wilds likes to do. That could be really interesting. But you can just see it, right? That moment where the camera dramatically goes down to Diva's face and you just know it's gonna happen. Her eyes open, maybe they're like glowing like Hinoa in Rise or something, and I just feel it in my bones. Now, I might be reading too much into it, of course, but I guess for me, if Diva is going to be involved in some sort of story moment, it makes the most sense for it to be a big one, and when I think big one, I think literally big one, which makes me think giant siege monster fight. So that's kind of where I'm thinking there. Obviously, there's nothing definitively in game other than maybe the huge craters around the place that you can see from the watchtower on the Iceshard cliffs that look like they're caused by something fairly large impacting there. They don't all really look natural, like Dalameders were just slapping about the place, and we are high on the peaks. There is Dalameter skeletons, so there's a history of large monsters here, so there's definitely some sort of maybe precedence for huge creatures, but there's nothing like so slam dunky other than the fact that it would be kind of weird to go the 6th gen without a siege, and I think Wilds would do it something ridiculously cool just from the fabric of how it is and how it's been put together, and I think the Grand Hub and the Diva have a little bit more to reveal. Whether that's connected or even going to happen, who knows, but I would love to absolutely see it. So that's my thoughts on a siege hunt in Monster Hunter Wilds, and I would love to know yours too, on anything I've talked about, on anything I've not, but for now, like if you've enjoyed this, and let me know which of all the returning siege hunts, or at least other monsters that could be siegeified, you'd like it to be. But now then, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.